Get ready. You're listening to Give God 90 live.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome everyone. It's Thursday night. We are live at Give God 90. Thank you for joining us. My name is Jerry Mitchell, your host for Give God 90. And guess who's actually here tonight?
Hi.
She had the day off, so we are sitting here patiently waiting for the time to start. And that has come, and we're ready, I think, almost.
I think so.
Well, it's here whether we're ready or not,
That's
right?
right.
Okay. Got a couple things. Before we jump into the topic tonight, I cannot, and I don't like to get political here, but I'm going to get a little bit political here because it doesn't matter which side would have done this, I would have probably reacted the same way. I read an article today, and I didn't believe it, which happens sometimes. You know, you read something, you go, there is no way that I just saw that. And it comes from something that I wasn't familiar with. It comes from a place called the Babylon Bee, which is a web-based site that gathers different types of news sources, or news stories, I should say. And the headline was, demanding to know why he allowed President Trump to get elected, Dems subpoena God. Now, that means Democrats. And for the people who are overseas listening to this and are not familiar with the way this country works, we have two major parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, and they are always at each other's throats in the recent years. But they decided, the Democrats decided, because they are so infatuated with hating our president, that they were going to subpoena God. Yeah, that's kind of the reaction I had when I first read this. The story begins, and this was actually done yesterday, and we'll get to that a little bit in the article. And it says, trying to get to the bottom of how and why President Trump was elected, House Democrats, that meaning the House of Representatives, not the Senate, House Democrats issued a subpoena to Almighty God to force him to testify in Congress on Wednesday. Now, it's a good, now you said it too. It's a good thing we're not God. Right?
Yeah,
because I'd show up. You know, I would show up, and you would too. But they would not like it when I showed up.
No.
All right. House. The news story continues. While House leadership was quick to clarify that they don't believe in the God of the Bible per se, they said they had to explore all possible avenues in their exhaustive search for an answer as to why Trump was put in the White House. We're not sure if God is out there or not, or if there's some great positive spiritual energy holding up the cosmos, said Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. But whoever he or she is, or Z, as in XE in English, whoever Z is, we will interrogate them. We will not allow God to get off the hook for his collusion in bending all of human history to his irresistible will. Are you catching all this, folks? Because this is tough. She just said We don't believe in God. But whoever this God is, if there is this supernatural, we're going to interrogate him. And we will not allow... We will not allow God to impose his will. That's what she said. Okay? And you can look this up. This is on, like I said, the Babylon Bee. There's just a couple more sentences here in this story. After the Lord who sits in the heavens and does all he pleases, he did not show up at their hearing. Democrats were seen eating KFC to mock him for being chicken and issued a stern warning. These subpoenas are not optional, said Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler. When the Congress of the United States commands you to appear, you appear. I don't care if you are the Lord of all creation. Trump is in the White House, and we will get answers. Okay. This fits with my topic for today. The ultimate replacement theology, okay? Now, when I asked you the other day what the ultimate, or what replacement theology was, you weren't sure, right?
Right.
And so, do you have a little better understanding now what I'm talking about when I talk about the ultimate replacement theology?
Yes.
Okay. As long as we understand those things. So, as we look at these things and try to figure these things out, replacement theology basically means instead of God, what God said, you're going to replace it with something else. And a lot of times, like scientists, we've been to the Creation Museum, we've been to the Ark, and secular scientists say, no, the Earth wasn't created, it evolved. Mm-hmm. They are replacing creation with evolution. They are replacing what God did with random chance happenings.
Right.
Now, I took a picture of a dragonfly this morning, right?
Yes.
And I actually put it on Give God 90's Facebook page. And I said, there are people out there who believe that what you see just sort of happened. Mm-hmm. Now, if you take all of the components of that dragonfly and you separate them out, okay, we're going to take them all apart.
Right.
Then we're going to put them in a bag. Mm-hmm. How many years do you think you have to shake this bag up before you get a dragonfly?
Never.
You're never going to get a dragonfly. It's exactly right. It's never going to happen. You will never get a dragonfly no matter what you do.
No.
If I take a truckload of building material that has everything in it to build a house with, and I'll even grant you the cut all the pieces to length part of it. Okay, so you have this prefab Lincoln log kit. And we take it up to the top of a hill and we roll this stuff down the hill. How many times do we have to roll it down the hill before it actually lands into the shape of a house?
For the rest of eternity. And then some.
So, trying to replace design with, random chance is kind of futile in most people's minds. But yet they replace what God did with this random chance. And I'm going to get to the reason for that. Don't let me forget to get to the reason for that.
Okay.
But the ultimate replacement theology is not even the leadership in the House of Representatives demanding that God stop imposing his will on the human race. They are attempting to usurp the authority of the Almighty there, right?
That's right.
It's kind of a dangerous thing to do.
It's scary. Stay very far away from there.
We don't live that far from D.C. And when the brimstone begins to fall,
Look out.
It's not going to be very fun. It's going to make, like I said, it's a good thing that the Almighty is very, very, very patient, because if it was me, I don't want an apology to Sodom and Gomorrah for what I do to Washington, D.C. But that's just me. Just me. The interesting thing about that, though, is they have the audacity to believe that they are in control.
Right.
Pilate, 2,000 years ago, probably believed he was in control. Mm-hmm. But all Pilate was a willing participant in the happenings that were being played out in his court.
Right.
He was there, and he says, by his own admission, I don't see anything wrong with what he did, but you tell me what you want done. He was a willing participant at that point. Mm-hmm. He didn't want any control over it, but he says, I'm washing my hands of it. You folks, play this out among yourselves. I'm just going to stand back, because when lightning begins to strike, I don't want to be anywhere near it.
That's exactly it.
There is, though, something that's even worse than that. And we witnessed a little bit of it a couple of years ago, and I think I may have said something about this several times throughout the podcast history over the last year and a half or so now. And we were sitting in a service one night. This is a small kind of a
Bible study
type of service thing. And the leader was reading a passage about on the day of judgment, if you are found, how's a pleasant way to say this? There's no pleasant way to say it. If you haven't done the things you need to do to get right with the Almighty, He is going to throw you out in the dark, where there will be wailing and gnashing of teeth, right?
Right.
That's what it says.
Right.
And a lady we've known for years was sitting there. She says, I don't think God would do that. Now, we just got done reading.
And it was telling us exactly what God is going to do if this doesn't happen.
and I don't think God would do that. She is replacing the words of the Almighty with her own desire.
Right.
Now, granted, she has probably never thought of it that way.
No.
In her mind, she is looking to worship this loving, caring, nurturing entity that she believes is God, right?
Right.
I would venture to say she's in the dating stage. You remember when we started dating like 30 years ago? Pickup trucks didn't have the center console.
Right.
So when you're dating, now the joke was, you had a bench seat in a pickup truck. When the man was driving, if you were dating, the woman was sitting next to the man. She was sitting in the middle, right?
Right.
But when you were riding behind a pickup and the man was driving and the woman was sitting on the opposite side next to the passenger door, they were married at that point. Mm-hmm. Because when you're dating, you're looking for the best in people.
Right.
So you're close to them. You want to get up there. But when you're married, all the secrets have turned out. You know the best and you know the worst. So when you're married, you kind of have that space of, the safety net. Now nowadays you can't sit in the middle.
No,
because
there's a console.
The console's there now, and trucks have bucket seats and all that good stuff, all for safety and all for comfort and that kind of thing. But that was a joke back then, and that's what I believe these folks who express this. I can't see my God that I worship, my loving, caring God. I can't see Him doing that. They're in the dating stage. They're looking for the best. They're not looking for the complete package. Mm-hmm. See, they're not looking for. They're not looking for the person they want to spend the rest of their life with. They're looking for the fun of now, right?
Right.
They don't understand that you got to have someone who is going to be, you know,
the stern person, the person that's going to keep you in line, the disciplinarian,
exactly.
They just look at it as, oh, lovey, cushy, huggy, kissy.
Exactly.
And that's not what our God is. You make him angry, he will show you.
Yeah, you don't believe that? Just read your Bible, folks. That's for sure. You know, the entire nation of Israel learned that lesson several times over. But the ultimate replacement theology is not even that. Not even doing that, you know, looking for the best that God has to offer. The ultimate replacement theology all boils down to, you know what? I don't care what God says. I want to do it my way. It just doesn't matter to me anymore. There cannot be this supreme being who rules the universe and allows this or that or something else to happen. You know, it's no longer what they say, it's what I say. And a friend of ours, Haley, has a saying for that. You know, she says, well, congratulations, you're now God. There was a show on television, I think it was on television, a few years ago, where the writers actually put this into the script. And the character in the show was giving this dialogue, well, actually it was a monologue at that point, where he said, there is no God but me, I will pray to myself. Kind of dangerous place to be.
Oh.
But think about this, because Isaiah says that the prayers of an unrighteous person are an abomination. You can ask God all you want. Why would he give you something when you are rebelling against him? What, you know, you go to your doctor for a prescription when you're sick, and he looks at your list of medications from the other doctors you've been going to, and he says, you don't need me. You don't need me at all. You go see the other doctor, right?
Right.
Is there any difference there between what we're talking about, other than spiritual versus medical?
No.
So, you know, if you're going to reject the Almighty and then say, why aren't you giving me X, Y, and Z? He's going to look at you and go, who are you? And why are you asking me?
Right.
When you're praying to yourself, when you have replaced God with self, why even bother to ask? You know, pray to yourself. Leave the Almighty out of it, because he's going to ignore you. There are churches, time after time after time, that have these prayer chain things. And we've talked about this before. And the same people wind up on these prayer chains week after week after week. Why isn't something going on? Mm-hmm. Well, the reason these somethings aren't going on, the reason that something isn't going on, I should say, is because these folks have replaced the Almighty with themselves. It may be very innocent, but they've done it. Mm-hmm. My God wouldn't do that. No, absolutely. My God wouldn't do that. They've replaced God's instructions with their own traditions. Have you ever thought about replacement theology in that aspect? God says, I need you to be here on this day, this day, this day, and this day. That's where you need to be. If you want to have a relationship with me, you need to show up on these days. And you ignore those days. You stand up the date, okay, if you're still in the dating stage. Mm-hmm. You stood up somebody you're supposed to be in a relationship with. You didn't show up. And he's saying, and you want me to do what for you? No. Next time we go out to dinner, it's Dutch treat, buddy. You know, you pay for your own way, I'll pay for my own way. Mm-hmm. You know, we'll get there together eventually, maybe. But when you refuse the Creator's instructions, you have replaced his concepts, his ideas, his plans with your own. Now, sometimes that's selfishness, and here's where I get to the part I told you not to let me forget, okay?
Okay.
Sometimes that's out of selfishness. But you know what it's really boiling down to? What it really boils down to is, you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to do it my way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have to eat right. I don't want to have to sleep right. I don't want to have to dress right. I don't want to have to whatever, insert your least favorite adjective, so to speak. And instead, I'm going to do it my way. It goes farther than selfishness. It goes to the point of what's worse than selfishness? Self-righteousness, where you exalt yourself above the Almighty to the point, or to such a degree, I should say, that you now believe you're in charge. Instead of doing what it says, and I have said this before too, the instructions for repentance are in 2 Chronicles 7, where it says, if you will humble yourself, that means you acknowledge somebody is greater than you. Mm-hmm. If you will pray, it means you have to have that conversation with the Almighty in a very humble way where you are recognizing He is the important one in the relationship. Humble yourselves, pray. The rest of it, y'all know. Y'all know this. He says, at that point, you get the family name. He will adopt you back into the family. He will do all of these things for you, and He will heal the things that you have responsibility over. If you do it as a nation, He heals the nation. If you do it as an individual, He will take care of your needs. But when you are arrogant enough, such as we see our American government the last couple of days, when you are that arrogant, you can go back and read Isaiah and say, how did people get kicked out of the land? It was simple. They rejected the Almighty. They replaced the Almighty with, at that point in time, they were looking around at all these other religions, and they said, you know what? If we worship our Creator the way those pagans over there, because it looks like fun, but we're gonna go over here and we're gonna dance a little. We're gonna party a little. We're gonna eat some really good food. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that, and we're gonna say that we're doing it for our God. And He's already told you, don't do that. Mm-hmm. See, you've replaced the Almighty with this other concept that doesn't come from Him. It comes now from you. Congratulations, you're now God. Mm-hmm. By the way, let me know how that works for you. Because if it does, let me know. I'm willing to give it a try if it really, really, really works.
But I wouldn't even go there.
I am willing. Well, I think it's a pretty safe bet because it ain't going to work.
No.
There is just no way in the world it will work for anybody else. It's not designed that way. We aren't designed that way. That's why when we read things like what we read earlier, it takes people like us. It kind of makes us go, huh? How did people get to this point? How did they reach this point? I had a person a couple years ago. I had a conversation with them, and they just couldn't get through their understanding that there are people who have been in that close relationship with the Almighty. They understand what He is. They know what to do. And then one day something happens and they just turn around and walk away. And they had no conceptual grasp of that concept. They couldn't understand how that could happen. He's like, why would somebody who would take something so good and throw it away? He says, it's like throwing away $1 million bank account.
Yes.
I said, yeah, it is. But they do. I've seen it happen. Watched it happen. One fella, no names, but he was a very important person in the church. Mm-hmm. And he chose a different lifestyle and threw everything away. Cost him, his family, cost him his
Right.
children. He walked away because something else looked more fun. It looked better. Something else had his attention. Something else was out there that he thought he wanted to grab hold of and hold on to. He replaced his Creator with his own desires. That is the ultimate replacement theology. When you replace what the Almighty has for you with what you want for you, it never works out the way you think it's going to. Never. Ever, ever, ever. So it is a pretty safe bet for me to say, you know what, if anybody ever does this, let me know. You know, I'll take a look at it. But be a really good salesman, because I am really skeptical about a lot of things.
Right. Especially that.
One of the things that kind of stands out when we're talking about replacement theology is a lot of people don't understand how easy it is to do. Sometimes the simplest little traditions take us away from where we need to be. Sometimes the little minor, seemingly unimportant church doctrines take us away from where we need to be. I had a question from Jay, who listens to this, about Memorial Day. America celebrates Memorial Day this weekend. And Memorial Day was established to remember our fallen soldiers. And there's nothing in Scripture that says we can't do that.
Right.
In fact, we are told to remember.
Yes.
So it should be an honor for people to remember that. Now, that's the way it started. It was a solemn day to honor and celebrate those lives that were lost in defending this nation. Now, it has turned into something other than that.
True.
Because it's man-made. It did have the chance to evolve into what most people are going to call, the unofficial beginning of summer, and the unofficial beginning of barbecue season, or cooking out on the grill, which is kind of strange because when this whole day started, most people were cooking on a wood fire anyway.
Right. They were already grilling out.
So they were already doing it, because it actually started at the end of the Civil War, just shortly after that. So, we take that time and we honor these people, we remember these people, and hopefully, even though it does kind of kick off the beginning of the summer season, people will at least take a few moments and remember that. And it doesn't matter what country you're in, you can always do that, especially if it is somebody that was close to you that you need to remember. There's a lot of people that this holiday hits hard for. And not only in this country, but even in Great Britain. It's tough on those folks over there, because they were really affected by especially World War One. And it's kind of neat, because over here we have the poppies that they sell. We didn't get any this year.
No, didn't see any.
Didn't see any. But over there they have their poppy day.
Yes.
Same thing, and their poppies over there are really neat.
They are. They're nice.
So don't forget to remember those fallen folks and honor them. Don't celebrate too much out of the realm of normality.
Right.
Folks, as long as you stick to following the Almighty's instructions, you're safe. Don't replace them with your own ideas. Don't replace them with your own thoughts. Jeremiah 29:11 says, and everybody for some reason has adopted this translation of, I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for good, not for evil. Right? Not exactly when you read it in Hebrew what you get, because what the Almighty is actually saying is, I have ideas for you. I have an idea in my mind that I want you to do, but you've got to be wanting to do it. Because if you do it, nothing evil can happen to you. Nothing evil will happen to you. If you do things my way, you will have a long, successful, prosperous life. Now, that's a lot of explaining to do for that. I know the plans I have for you, right?
Right.
Which is probably why they shortened it. But that's what it really means. I have ideas for you if you will just do it my way and not do it your way. Don't replace me with you. I designed you for this. I've often used the concept of a table. If a carpenter builds a table, now the table knows it's a table. But if somebody puts a bookshelf on it, if somebody puts a book on the table, does it automatically become a bookshelf? Well, no, it's still a table. It's just simply holding up a book at a time. The table knows it's still a table. We're the ones that keep wanting to replace things. And it's easy to replace a table with a bookshelf, but it's kind of hard to replace the creator of the universe with yourself. Mm-hmm. Ladies and gentlemen, I certainly thank you for your time this evening, or whenever you're listening to this, because you can still take this with you, download it, do whatever you want to with it, because you can download the Give God 90 app absolutely free. Somebody else has paid for it, so you don't have to. And that gives you complete control over how you listen to this. Mm-hmm. And that's on a mobile device. If you listen to it on a laptop or desktop, you're kind of stuck there.
Right.
But you can take a phone or a iPad, or what's the one the kids have? Not a Kindle. Anyway,
tablet.
the tablet, the Microsoft version of an iPad. Yes, we're an Apple family. I use Apple products, and I don't keep up with Microsoft's technology. But you can actually take it with you and search these everything's archived. You can search them, and if you don't finish listening to one, if you don't finish listening to a podcast, mm-hmm. it will remember where you left off and pick it up when you start listening to it again. Isn't that kind of cool?
It is.
So, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful, wonderful week. We certainly appreciate your time. We appreciate you listening.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great week.